We have multiple New York Rangers updates to go over today, as a new acquisition could be making his Rangers season debut. We have some interesting lineup decisions by Peter Laviolette and some shocking comments from Matt Rempe as he returns from his suspension. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest, but before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 74% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel, so if you want to stay up to date with everything New York Rangers, it's free. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, we're going to start with Matt Rempe. This is a guy who is coming back from his lengthy suspension. He knows that he has to take it easy this time around, or else there could be some serious consequences, because this is a guy who's already had a plethora of major penalties in this league and obviously 2 major suspensions, and he was called up last game. Artemi Kaliyev, and we'll get to him in a second, was scratched, which was a little bit puzzling to me, but could make some sense because they wanted to call up Matt Rempe so he could serve his suspension and play against the Devils, but it looks like he might not even play against the Devils. We'll get to that in a second. Matt Rempe plans on veering on the side of caution for now because he is a quote-unquote marked man, and he knows that another hit could lead to a huge suspension. Now, I'm loving that some of these are in quotations because, he's a marked man. It's going to be a huge suspension. Now, while that is true, he does have to steer on the side of caution, I think, and not just for now, for the rest of his NHL career. This is a guy who's been kicked out of games 4 or 5 times already, major penalties, and he has 2 major suspensions in the league already. Obviously, his last one was 8 games. So he went on to say, and again, thank you to Peter Baugh for this. This is the full quote. I won't read all of it. Pause if you want to read all of it. It's pretty interesting. But he went on to say certain things like he has to be more controlled. He wants to be better and make plays in the neutral zone. The type of stuff that he was working on in the offseason. He's got to be careful for guys against the wall when they're turning, because obviously he has a bigger frame. He's a bigger body. If he's moving quicker, he's going to absolutely destroy guys. And again, some of it is his fault. He has to ease up in certain situations. He has to understand he's a bigger body than honestly 95% of the league. Not even 99% of the league is not as big as this guy. I mean, there's very few guys in the league on skates that are even close to this guy's size. So he's got to be careful. The next one that comes down is going to be a huge suspension. And for as many games as he's played, I think he's only played 22 games in the NHL. And the amount of times he's been kicked out of games, he's got to be careful. He's got to be careful. That being said, I do think that Matt Rempe has a lot of use for the New York Rangers, because a lot of fans think that he's just a big goon, but I don't think that's the case. I think there's a lot of upside to him. I think that at times he makes really dumb decisions and needs to learn how to use his body in the role that they need him to play in the NHL, at the NHL level, because his role is much different in the AHL. They want him to have the puck more. They want him to play in different situations. In the NHL, he's a fourth liner, right? So, but I think he can be a little bit more than that if he applies himself. So, the last game when he was kicked out against the Dallas Stars, he played a great game. He drew 3 penalties. He was doing exactly what they need him to do, and he was playing physical until he did that. So his decision-making needs to be cleaned up a little bit, and he has to just be more conscious of what he's doing on the ice and who he's about to hit and where, and how close it is to the boards. He's got to be conscious of all these things because he's bigger. It's just the fact of the matter, right? If it was a 5'11" player going full steam into another player, it wouldn't look as bad. But unfortunately, Matt Rempe, it's not unfortunately. I mean, it's a great thing to be that big because it gives you an advantage. But he's got to be careful. He's got to learn how to play at the NHL level, and he's got to do it quickly, because the next time he messes up, they're not going to be easy on him. That's for sure. Matt Rempe is looking forward to get back in the lineup for the Rangers. It's a dream come true, especially to do it in New York. It's an honor to play. I've got to be smarter, bring that energy, more controlled, but be smarter. And I think he knows what needs to be done. I'm just looking to him to actually apply it. And I think all Rangers fans are too. I think, a lot of Rangers fans actually do think that this guy can be effective. I totally agree. I think that he absolutely can if he plays the right way, if he plays smart. We haven't seen that yet. He has to do that. He talks about it. He's talking about it here. He did a lot of training in the offseason in terms of fighting and actually skating. He skated a lot with different New York Rangers. He was obviously living, I believe it was with Chris Kreider, and he got to or training with Chris Kreider, I should say, excuse me. And he was trying to work on his overall game. So if he continues to do that and he actually puts these things into motion, I think he can be an effective player. But until then, let's just hope that he veers on the side of caution, because it's been tough so far for him in his NHL career. And, at times it puts the Rangers at a disadvantage, obviously. And they won that game against the Dallas Stars that he got suspended in. But, if you keep continuing to do things like that, you're putting your team at a very serious disadvantage. But the one thing I thought was interesting is he might not even factor into the game against the New Jersey Devils tonight, because if the morning skate yesterday, or the practice, whatever you want to call it, was any indication from Peter Baugh, VC will stay in the lineup tomorrow, and Rempe will be a scratch. He and Zach Jones are on late after practice, so it looks like Zach Jones will be a scratch for his 7th consecutive game at this point as well. Had a video on that yesterday. I think that's very interesting as well. But Rempe, maybe it's a good thing keeping him out against the Devils, because that could probably get out of hand, but I think that's pretty interesting. And I think that it may have something to do with Artemi Panarin getting into the lineup as well, and maybe wanting VC in the lineup. And the last thing on Matt Rempe is he talked to the NHL Director of Player Safety, George Peros, over the summer to go over a few things. So he had a feeling after his hit on Heiskanen that he'd be facing a lengthy suspension. And then he went on to say much more of the stuff that we already covered in this video. But, he's got to be smarter. He knows what it is at this point. So let's put it in motion. If he's not able to do that, then we'll call it what it is. If he is able to do it, I think he can be an effective player for the New York Rangers. So last game, Kaliyev claimed off waivers, was eligible to play in the Rangers last game. He was healthy scratched, and it was because Peter Laviolette wanted to keep the same lineup together that was in the last game. He thought they were playing well. I think that's a little bit puzzling. I think you would want to get this new guy in as soon as possible. But Kaliyev thought it was unexpected. As Snark Messier puts it here, obviously, right? Like, of course, the first impression coming to the Rangers is, why am I being scratched this season? Of course, that's his first impression. So, random, weird. I think if you're the coaching staff, you would want to put this guy in the lineup right away, but it looks like he will draw in pretty shortly here against the New Jersey Devils. So I think that's a good thing. We should be seeing him. Should be an exciting game to see what he can do against the Devils. Artemi Panarin also said that his favorite Rangers player growing up was Rick Nash. So obviously that tells you how young he is, first of all. And I think this is a good comparison. If he plays anything like Rick Nash, when Rick Nash was in his prime, then the Rangers might have a pretty good player on their hands here. And I still think that he has a very high ceiling. I don't know if he himself is going to turn the season around. I don't think that's true, but I think he's going to be a very, very good piece for the Rangers here, and a guy who can put the puck in the back of the net. And he wanted a new opportunity in the NHL. He's getting exactly that, and it's with his favorite team growing up. So I think that's a great story. And in terms of other updates, Philip Hedl suffered an upper body injury, obviously, in their last game. He is still being evaluated. There's no update there. So that is a little bit of tough news as well. He could be out for still an extended period of time, and this is tough because he's been dealing with injury problems his entire career, and he's such an effective player when he plays. That is such a shame. And Chris Kreider, upper body injury. He skated on his own yesterday before practice, but still no update on that. He could be out. He's still on the IR, retroactive to Sunday. And Igor Shesterkin was practicing. Louis Domingues did not, but there's no roster move there yet, so it looks like Igor Shesterkin may not be ready to go yet. Maybe not 100%, but he's working his way back, and he could be back in the lineup soon, which is good news. And the last thing before we wrap up this video, the New York Rangers have been announced to be in the Winter Classic next year, the 2026 Winter Classic against the Florida Panthers, and it's not in New York. It is in Florida, so that's going to be interesting. I mean, they had a Winter Classic in LA before, so I'm sure they're going to be able to make it work. But that is the Winter Classic. It is on January 2nd of next year, 2026. The Rangers will be in it, so that is pretty exciting against the team that knocked them out in the playoffs last year, so should be pretty exciting. We'll see what the roster looks like at that point in time. But let me know in the comments what you think of Matt Rempe possibly sliding back into the lineup after suspension. It's not looking likely yet, but he will get in pretty short order, I believe, maybe over the next couple days or games. Let me know about the injury updates. I mean, it looks like Shesterkin's working his way back. Obviously, the Philip Hedl news is not ideal. Artemi Panarin, are you excited to see him play? I'm excited to see what he can do and if he can put the puck in the back of the net. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.